In that visit, Jesus revealed to him that you are a man whose eyes rove back and forth. You're always looking at women's bodies, John Mulinde. You have a roving eye and a prostitute interior. You are filled with lust, John Mulinde. Get your affairs in order. Men may be praising you, but I'm at the point of striking you. One of the best testimonies on the internet to this day is a testimony that is about 11 years old, and I saw it a year or two after the guy made it, because I've been saved a very, very, very long time. That pastor's name is John Mulinde, and John Mulinde's testimony that he made 11 years ago, that I saw maybe 8 years ago or something like that. 9 years ago. I saw it just 2 years after he made it. I came across it, and it's a testimony. It's only starting to make the waves in America now. Can you believe it? Because that kind of testimony doesn't even make sense to the American Christian space. And John Mulinde was speaking of how he came to a season in his church where they were suddenly overtaken with prayer. And they just would pray and pray and pray and pray. And the more they prayed, miracles began to happen in that man's church. Hard to believe diseases started getting healed. They started to have signs. They started to have wonders. They started to have visitations. They started to have so much powerful outworking. And John Mulinde 100% believed that God had come to his church, his little church in Uganda, for a visitation. You know how it is. God is here. God is here. And very well, he was not lying. God was there. Sometimes people would simply come and sit at the back of John Mulinde's church, and they would walk away with healing. They wouldn't even have to come to the front. They wouldn't have to come to an altar call. The presence of God was so palpable. But there came a time, as they continued with the prayers and the fasting, that John Mulinde began to feel himself locked out of the presence of God. John Mulinde would be with his intercessors, his female intercessors and his male intercessors, and everyone would be saying, God is saying this and God is saying that. And John Mulinde wouldn't be getting any downloads. And he's the pastor. He's the leader of the movement. He's the leader of the church. The surge is there. The flow is there. And John Mulinde seems to be locked out of the presence of God. And he was so concerned about this that he basically began to cry out to the Lord, why aren't you speaking to me? How come everybody's getting a word? It's embarrassing, God. It's shaming me. And then God spoke to John Mulinde directly and told him, I'm going to kill you. Which is never the kind of word that people want to hear. But to certain parts of the world, they very much understand and know, because they actually open their Bible beyond John 3:16, for God so loved the world. They fully understand that God is a God who takes life. God took Pharaoh's life. God took Herod's life. God took many people's lives. God even took the lives of his own Israelite kings when they were doing nonsense. God is indeed a God that kills and makes alive. But in America, God's job is simply to love and be the reckless love God. But in Uganda, they knew better than that. And so God was able to come to John Mulinde, who at one time was a friend who walked very closely with God. And God told John Mulinde, yes, that word that you wanted, get your affairs in order. I'm going to kill you because you are a man of a roving eye and a very slut-like heart. John Mulinde was scandalized. In that visit, Jesus revealed to him that you are a man whose eyes rove back and forth. You're always looking at women's bodies, John Mulinde. You have a roving eye and a prostitute interior. You are filled with lust, John Mulinde. Get your affairs in order, because I'm going to kill you. John Mulinde was devastated. John Mulinde said to the Lord, how can it be? And I can understand his confusion, because how can we be in the middle of what looks and smells and tastes like revival, and yet Jesus Christ is saying that the head of the movement is defiled? How can it be? And yes, it can be, for the Lord responded to John Mulinde and told him, I'm healing in this church because I love my people. It has nothing to do with you. You're too filthy for me to use you. I'm healing them directly because I love them. I'm healing them directly because they're calling out to me and I care about them. That's why I'm touching them. It has nothing to do with you. You are nothing more than a defiled figurehead. That's the United States of America. That's the recent prophecy. The last part of it is called Incoming, the Judgment of Religious Figureheads. America is a nation of dead, rotten, dud potatoes in the ground. But above the ground, the root of the ministries, the potatoes that are under the ground, they're all dead. They're stacked with maggots, worms, and feces. But above the ground, we have these beautiful palatial churches packed with people clapping and saying, God is in this story. God is in the moment. God is not anywhere. God is actually sitting with Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping right now, planning strategically to take this nation and nuke it pound for pound until there's nothing left. But the people in the nation don't know that. And in the religious houses especially, there is no word that gives life. It is possible to have the external appearance of spiritual life and yet internally be dead. That is what happened to John Mulinde, and he had to basically fast like I don't know what and plead and beg with God for his life. He's still alive today, traveling around the world, sharing that testimony. But you know what else he is doing? He is actually keeping the promise that he made the Lord. He has been fully restored, something that God says Miss Jackie Hill Perry does not have. Mrs. Jackie Hill Perry. He has been fully restored. He is also keeping the covenant that he made with God.